We welcome in Kevin Harris to the Eye of the Hurricane. He is the head women's rowing coach at the University of Tulsa. And your first activity here in the fall is coming up on October 5th and 6th. It's the Head of the Oklahoma.
Yep.
It's something you've been used to going to.
Yep.
Tell us about it.
Well, it's a great head race. The Oklahoma City Boathouse Foundation there on the North Canadian, which they call the Oklahoma River in Oklahoma City, has been hosting that race for 15 years plus now. And it's a great opportunity for us to just drive a short time as opposed to some of the other regattas that we go to. And the fall is about exhibition. The fall is about training. So it's good to go down and sort of flex our muscles, race some events that we don't usually race, like the quad or the double or something like that. But it's also a good chance to just kind of let the women, really get after it after, a month or so back and having been in training all this time.
And head racing is different than the line you up on a line and 6 boats go or whatever. Head racing is your boat goes and then 15, 20, 30 seconds later somebody else goes, right?
That's exactly right. It's essentially a time trial, right? So you don't know, unless you get past or you're passing people, you don't know really how you're doing. So, sometimes you can end up in a void where you might be moving fast, but people behind you you can't really see, and the people in front of you don't know where they are. So it's really important for the athletes to just stay firm in their racing and just get after it.
Yeah, and obviously when you're talking about the kind of time trials, keeping on your mark, keeping on exactly what you've kind of planned is important. But if you're kind of catching up to somebody that was ahead of you, you got to feel you're doing pretty well, right?
They get pretty excited when that happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to get past for sure.
Yeah.
But we want to pass as many people as possible. One of the things that might happen, I think we may be starting first in the Varsity 8. Okay. And there's some pretty good crews behind us. Like, Texas was number 2 in the nation last year, and of course Oklahoma and Alabama and SMU, Kansas. Some really great teams are going to be at this regatta. So it's just a lot of fun to be able to try and hold them off, even though we're looking at the whole field behind us.
I was going to say, you get to see them all, right? Yeah.
So it's pretty important that we try and get out ahead and try and open up that distance. But it's going to be a dogfight, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, and so it's kind of a compilation of a lot of American schools and a lot of Big 12 schools mostly?
That's right. So Alabama is actually a member of the Big 12 because there aren't enough SEC teams that row. So with Alabama, Kansas, Texas, and I think that's it with the Big 12. Oklahoma, sorry, forgot those guys.
Right.
Can't forget them. But then also SMU, who's in the American Conference, which is they're a great competitor for Tulsa in every sport, right? So it's always fun to be able to see what we can do against those guys.
All right, so that's coming up on October 5 and 6. If you're in the Oklahoma City area, stop on by. It is just a great spectacle.
It is. Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun to watch. And speaking of a lot of fun, you guys in the summer went across the pond and had quite a trip to Europe.
Yeah.
So take us through that. What happened?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, thank you to Helen and Andy McKay, especially for supporting the team in that way and giving the women the opportunity to travel overseas. We traveled to Venice, Italy, and then went from there to Bled, Slovenia, which is actually a renowned race course in the rowing world. It's actually where the World Championships will be next year. And we were able to race the Bled International Regatta. We enjoyed some great food, and the women were able to see a place that many of them will never, have never gone and may never get to go again. But then from there we went to England, and we were able to race the women's Henley for the second time in Henley-on-Thames in Great Britain. And we were fortunate to have a boat that won the women's lightweight double with Sofia Camarapi and Charalta Pop, and those guys just did a masterful job. But really, hands out to all of our kids. I mean, they raced so well, and it was so great to hear the fans, not just our fans, because we traveled really well.
Sure.
But to hear the fans on the race course just commenting on how well Tulsa did.
And certainly just a terrific cultural experience for your young ladies, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And in Bled, there's a monastery actually in the middle of the race course, and where they stayed was right next to the boathouse. So they were in a little hotel right next to the race course. And they were able to. This lake is unbelievable. It's kind of like a mountain lake from where you're from in upstate New York.
Sure.
And they would get out and just swim out to this castle or this monastery in the middle of the lake, and then swim back. And my family also was able to come, and many of our team families. So it was just a great place to be. And for many of them, seeing Venice for the first time, because that was our kind of layover before we got to Slovenia. Seeing the culture of the canals, and being water people, that of course appeals to us greatly. Getting to go to London and to spend a few days sort of moving around the capital of Great Britain was a lot of fun. So, the women enjoyed it. They were very tired at the end of it, but it's definitely a lifetime memory.
Well, and I'm sure with Venice, it's just a natural race course, right? Although I'm sure the gondolas wouldn't like you guys plowing through them, but it is interesting to see almost a natural race course right there in Venice.
Well,
right?
well, it's funny because while we were there, they were actually having a regatta. It's a different regatta than we would have, but as we were going into Venice for the first time as a team, we kept seeing all these boat trailers and oars, and as oarswomen, they're very keen on that. And they're like, "What's going on?" And it happened to be a really large regatta there in Venice.
Nice. So now you get ready for the head of the Oklahoma, and then later on we have some more, right? More action.
So we'll head up to Lawrence, Kansas for the Jayhawk Jamboree, is what they call it. That's October 19th, and then we'll host our own regatta here on November 1st, called the Tulsa Fall Invitational, and that'll be SMU and Kansas will come down for that. So that'll be our last event for the fall.
All right, more news coming on that. Obviously, we'll talk to Coach about that certainly as we get ready to host our own event coming up this fall. Coach, good luck.
Thank you.
The head coach of TU Women's Rowing, Kevin Harris.